Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to IHWE Radio. Last week, Michael McCurdy, the host of IHWE Radio, and myself had planned a special afternoon edition of IHWE Radio. We had a very special show planned. We were going to do an afternoon edition so our regular evening fans could download it and listen as opposed to trying to catch us on Wednesday nights, because Wednesday nights can be very hard. We had a very good show lined up, a stacked show coming off one of the most successful weekends in modern pro wrestling history. However, hours before we went on the air today, last night, the whole wrestling world was turned on its ear when it was reported, it came across the wire, Jim Hellwig, a.k.a. Warrior, a.k.a. the Ultimate Warrior, passed away at the age of 54. This was just hours after making his first appearance on Monday Night Raw for the first time in nearly 2 decades, and it came off a wonderful 3-day weekend where the Warrior appeared live in WWE programming 3 straight days for the first time since 1996, and it seemed like it would never happen. Before we get this show started, this show will be a tribute to the legacy of Warrior, a man who is one of the most iconic figures in entertainment and sports and professional wrestling in the last 3 decades. A father, an entrepreneur, and a figure that will just never be forgotten. We are going to have a moment of silence, and when we come back from this moment of silence, we will get this show started. I will bring on Michael. We will share memories of the Ultimate Warrior. We will be bringing on Jerry Jarrett, who was booking when the Ultimate Warrior and Sting, as the Blade Runners, had a run in Memphis before the Warrior really found his stardom. We have a statement from Bill Anderson, who had a hand in the Ultimate Warrior's training, along with the legendary late, great Red Bastien, and more. Please bear with us during the show, ladies and gentlemen, as we were not prepared for this. We're going to do the best that we can, and we're going to do our job, and our job is to celebrate and promote positive goodwill in professional wrestling, even in the darkest of times, today being those days. Please pause wherever you are and have a moment of silence for the Warrior, his 2 daughters, his widow, his family, his friends, and his allegiance of fans worldwide. Thank you. At this time, I want to bring on the regular host of IHWE Radio, who is just as shocked and as anybody else, a lifelong fan of pro wrestling, an author, a writer, and a man who really loves this business, and he is affected today as any of us are. Michael McCurdy. Michael, first of all, I appreciate you, kind of bearing with me the past few hours. You were the first one to report the news to me. I was laying in bed with my wife and my son, and we were right in the middle of ordering something offline when you came across and let me know. It's not that I didn't believe you, but I checked my normal sites that I do before I listened to that, and you were right. You were the one who broke it to me, and thank you for coming on today, this afternoon, and welcome to the show.
Oh, anytime, man. Like you said, our job here is to promote positive goodwill in wrestling and all that. And the Ultimate Warrior, as you said, he was a legend. He was an icon and we have to take a chance and take this moment to remember him and to pay tribute to him. And unfortunately, I had to be the guy that broke that news to you. And my friend Joe Souza was the one who broke the news to me. I had just gotten home last night and got a call from him saying it was all over Facebook. Have I heard anything that the Warrior died? And I was like, no, Warrior didn't die. What are you talking about? I went on, looked on the sites, and it took me less than a minute, and it was everywhere. And, yeah, you were the first person I contacted. Sorry to pass the news on to you in such a blunt way, but I was in total shock because, like everyone else, I saw him Monday night. And, it's like 24 hours later, he's gone. So, we're going to do a good show tonight. I hope the people out there listening are, this is a chance for them to kind of, recollect and, remember their memories of, of Warrior, the Ultimate Warrior, Dingo Warrior, Blade Runner Rock, however you remember him, however you saw him. This is not supposed to be sad. This is supposed to be something in tribute, and we're going to do our best to, remember him for who he was and what he did, and we're going to forget the negative and accent the positive.
Exactly. That's the way it should be. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, please bear with us. We are on the cuff here, and I'm trying to get my studio. Okay, I've got my studio up. I'm going to try to get Jerry Jarrett on the line. So at this time, if you will just bear with us for 1 second, we will get Jerry Jarrett here on the line, and we will share some memories of his experiences with the Ultimate Warrior. So, Michael, if you want to go ahead and just talk for a few moments while I get Jerry on the line, maybe share your first memory of seeing the Ultimate Warrior live. I know you shared it earlier on Facebook while I get Jerry on the line.
Yeah, my first memory of the Warrior was in 1988. The WWF, WWE now, had come to my hometown in Eureka, and we're doing a show at the oddly enough, Redwood Acres Fairgrounds, where I've promoted a show now. And the main event of that show was Ultimate Warrior versus Hercules. That was one of his first programs in WWF. And it was the first time I'd ever seen this guy because I didn't get a lot of the WWF programming where I lived. So it was the first time I saw him. And he was definitely, he got your attention. The man had charisma. The man had the look. And I was a fan from the beginning. In fact, when
Okay, Michael, okay, we're being patched through. Well, let's go ahead and get Jerry. Hold that thought. Got it.
So?
Mr. Jarrett?
Yes.
This is David. We're live on our radio show, IHWE Radio. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Michael McCurdy is our co-host out in California. Michael, this is Mr. Jerry Jarrett.
How are you doing tonight, Jerry? Or today?
Good, Michael. Glad to join you fellas.
Oh, thank you for coming on and joining us.
Thank you, yes, indeed, Jerry. You're one of the most legendary names in our business. I've heard so many things about you over the years. You seem to have done everything in this business. Obviously, we had prepared to talk about everything with you, everything from your days promoting in Memphis to booking to working with Vince McMahon, the early stages of TNA. But obviously, something did happen last night, and we're going to go ahead and kind of shift gears and talk about James Hellwig, the Warrior. You were, now correct me if I'm wrong, you were, of course, either promoting or booking in Memphis when Sting and the Warrior came into the territory as the Blade Runners. Can you share with us your first impression of the tag team when they came? And because Warrior, even in his DVD last week, he had stated that he had a really nice time in Memphis, and they seem to have learned a lot coming to Memphis, working with Dundee, yourself, Jerry Lawler. So please share with us how that came about.
Well, it was four fellas from California that came in, sent me pictures, and they were bodybuilders. and all four looked great. They slightly exaggerated their ring experience. But
right.
at any rate, I said, you fellas, if you want to be in the business and are willing to come to Hendersonville, Tennessee, come in and I'll take a look at you. With no videos and no documentation, I can't just book you over the telephone. So sure enough, all four of them showed up. And we sat down and had some conversation. And, decided on the name Blade Runners for all four of them. The concept was that they were a force from California, and we would, if one of them was in a single, the others would be at least watching from the back. If they were in a tag, the other two, and it was just kind of a new concept, and they loved it. So we got started, and I saw real quick that they were very, very limited as far as experience.
Right.
So I explained to them that they were limited and that they wouldn't make very much money, and I would do the best I could to use them as often as I could, and then I would also help them with their ring work and their interview skills. And two of the fellows decided this is not for me, and they returned to California.
Right.
Steve and Jim said, yes, we'll appreciate any help you can do, and they apologized for exaggerating, but they said they were truthful in all of their calls, and everybody told them, go learn to wrestle and come back. So, they stayed around, and we did the best we could to give them experience with their very limited in-ring skills. One thing that made it even more difficult is they both, Steve and Jim, looked physically like Superman. They were well developed and both nice looking, and so when they walked to the ring, then their lack of knowledge and ring skills showed even more. But, they stayed and they persevered, and I helped them get booked. I don't remember if they went to Watts or where they went to when they left here, but, I didn't overstate their abilities, but I sent pictures and said, they, in time, might have a chance. I can give you a funny anecdote to that story. One night they were standing at the back of the Mid-South Coliseum, and they had just finished a terrible match. Well, certainly it wasn't good. And Steve, who later became Sting, said to me, well, Mr. Jarrett, you've helped a lot of people get in the business. What do you think about us? And I said, well, if you were my sons, I would recommend that you go get a job, because I don't think y'all will ever make $1 in this business. So that tells you that with all of my successes in spotting talent, I sure missed it with them, because they both became household names and multimillionaires.
Did you ever? Now I know you went back and you worked off and on with. I know you worked off and on for Vince McMahon. Did you ever cross paths with Jim in working for Vince McMahon throughout the later years as he went on to get some very high success in the World Wrestling Federation?
Yeah, no, he was when I went up to WWE. Warrior had already had his run and was no longer there. The only contact I had with him was when we started TNA.
Right.
I had heard all of the rumors and on the internet how difficult Warrior became to get along with after my experience with him, because they were great guys and very understanding and agreeable and humble when I had them. So when I read all this, it didn't jive with what I personally knew about Jim.
Right.
So I called him and said, Jeff and I are starting up a company and wondered if you'd be interested in reviving your career and coming in and work for us. We got to the point of contracts, and after the 12th or 15th rewrite of the contract, I told him, Jim, I would have really liked to have worked with you again, particularly after you had all the experience and the fame you accumulated, but I just can't do it. You're too difficult. You have lived up to the bad reputation that I've read about online. I wish you a lot of luck. And he said, oh, I understand. He said, but, I'm a wounded warrior. I've gotten screwed around by so many people. I just don't really trust anybody. And I said, well, that's sad. Please call me if you change your mind.
Now that was when TNA, not to cut you off, that was when you first started TNA, and that was with the weekly pay-per-views from Alabama, or from Nashville, I'm sorry, correct?
Right, that's right.
Okay. When you went back to the World Wrestling Federation, on the WWE 50 Years documentary they put out last year, they had an archived interview with William Moody, Percy Pringle, Paul Bearer, for those who don't know. And William had stated that during McMahon's trial, when he was brought to trial by the federal government, which it did involve Jim, you were brought in to possibly take over the reins if Vince was convicted. Any truth to that?
Yes, I like to think of it as a lot more subtle than that. I had then and I have now great admiration and respect for Vince. The role that I felt like I would have played was that Vince had great talent, both in the ring and in the company in Titan Towers, in the corporate structure.
In the office, right.
Yes, but nobody there had the experience of running a wrestling promotion and understanding all the different parts. So I came up in our conversations and the eventuality that Vince was not successful in his trial, that I would be that person to kind of hold things together until he got back.
That's incredible. Wow. Yeah, I'd heard that, and I was going to ask you about that. That's incredible. Okay, so Jim and Borden and two others that come from California, I believe, and when they had already been broke in by Red Bastine, came and worked for you, and then they went to Mid-South, and then I think they went their separate ways. So from somebody on the outside looking in, since you were down in Memphis running a very successful territory for many, many, many years, when Warrior went through Texas as a Dingo Warrior, had a little bit of a run down here, then goes up to Vince. So he goes up to Vince, and obviously he's doing a bunch of squash matches, a lot of character presentation, visual presentation. The in-ring product is kept very short, very power, very intense. But now he's starting to get a little bit of fire. He's working with Rick Rude. He starts running with Andre, doing short matches with Andre because Andre's at the end of his road. And now he's in the main event of WrestleMania with Hogan for the title. From the outside looking in, but from someone who gave Jim the rub when he needed it, such as yourself, during that time, what were your thoughts when you knew that Jim was wrestling Hulk in the main event of WrestleMania for the title?
Well, naturally, I was proud of him. When you have all of the people that we helped along in their career, some of them from day one, I didn't know that Steve or Jim had ever had a match prior to coming to Tennessee. They told me that they hadn't. And
right.
But I mean, who knows? Maybe you know something I don't know. But at any rate, they were very green at best. So when Ultimate Warrior achieved the status that he did, I was very proud of him because he was never blessed with a great in-ring wrestling skills. In other words, he was not a mat wrestler. But what he had going for him was an incredible physique and a lot of charisma. So he took those two assets and, with the help of Vince McMahon, covered up the one weakness he had for the business and became a superstar and drew a lot of money. So, I was very happy. On the other hand, Sting developed into a extraordinary wrestling talent. And he used the face paint to enhance his charisma and to develop into the character of Sting. But he was better equipped for the business. Jim, on the other hand, and I think this was the reason for his political problems throughout his career, he had to be handled special.
Right.
In other words, his match had to be short. He had to be booked against somebody that would really help him along during the match, whether it was 3 minutes or 6 minutes. But no, my feeling was throughout his successful run with WWF, I was very proud of him. The same as I was with Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart and 2 or 3 dozen others.
Who also came, Jimmy Hart started in Memphis, of course, and then Hogan came through Memphis early on.
Yes. Hogan may have, when Louis Gillette called me, he was very honest and said that, he really couldn't call him a wrestler, but he had a lot of charisma and was huge in size, and that, you know, if I could help him along in his career, he thought he could become a big box office. And so Louis Tollett is the person that called me, and I took Terry to Tupelo, Mississippi. I don't know how many times, a lot, and worked out with him in the ring and suffered the consequences because he was a big guy, and when he would fall on you and drop a leg on you, and instead of the leg, misjudge it and come down with his butt, it was painful.
He didn't know what was
well, he just, you know, he
right.
was...
He was raw.
He was new and raw,
yeah.
and
right.
And you know, I spent as much time helping him make interviews as I did in ring. I mean, you know, he really developed here. And I first called my friend Vince McMahon Sr., and Vince passed on him. And then I sent the videos to Vern Gagne, and Vern Gagne took him, and then later Vince Jr. went over and got him from Vern.
The rest is history. It's absolutely amazing, and for people who don't know, it is absolutely amazing to know all the talent that passed through Memphis, and Jerry had to hand in. I used to, when I was growing up, I used to buy those 30-minute tapes, mostly of Memphis wrestling. It had Macho Man, the missing matches, Hulk Hogan, the missing matches, and you had Hogan versus Lawler, and the night that Macho Man pile drove one of the Rock and Roll Express through the table, and that's the night that y'all outlawed the pile driver in Memphis. Andre had come through there, the Road Warriors, Kamala, and then you were involved down here in North Texas in World Class when it turned over to USWA, and you were one of the first guys to bring Steve Austin out of Texas and put him up in Tennessee. And he tells a story about him getting the Steve Austin name from Dutch Mantell when he was working for you. So it's
right.
Absolutely amazing to know all the talent that you had worked with. And, of course, you and your son started TNA, and that's a conversation for another day that I'd love to delve into with you. This past weekend, did you get a chance to see any of the Warrior on television? I know you probably don't really pay attention to the current product, but did you get a chance to see anything this weekend of him on TV?
No, I didn't, but my business partner is a huge wrestling fan, and he has just sent me the video of Ultimate Warrior's induction, and right before you called, I was in the middle of listening to Linda McMahon, who, by the way, I think may be the classiest person at WWE. And so I will watch the video.
From a fan standpoint, and this is just me, obviously, you know him better than me. It was really nice to see. It was nice that him and Vince were able to put all the stuff behind them. I wish they would have done it years ago, but you read stuff over the years and you don't know what's fiction and what's just thrown in there to create more drama. It was really nice. His Hall of Fame speech was off a little, but that's the Warrior. And he had a really nice promo Monday night. His dialogue seemed to reflect somebody who knew their time was up, which I don't believe, obviously. I think it was just something that he threw together because that seems to be Warrior's MO over the years. But from a fan standpoint, somebody who's watched this for so many years, I was very happy to see it, and it crushed me to hear that the Warrior had passed, especially when he did walk out with his 2 young daughters on Saturday at the Hall of Fame. Nobody can ever take away that the Warrior was one of the most iconic wrestling characters of all time, along with Hogan, Savage, Andre, The Rock, Steve Austin, and so on and so forth. When you hear the name Warrior or Jim Hellwig, what comes into your head?
That he was one of a handful of the most charismatic superstars the business has ever had. And I have an appreciation and a respect for Jim that maybe a lot of other people don't, because when you can reach the level that he reached with your in the wrestling business and be limited with your wrestling skills, that takes a very, very special person. And so, yes, I thought it was terribly tragic. But I also think that it was an absolute blessing that the WWE brought him in before he died, because I know that Jim would take that as a tremendous honor.
You have this forum now, although you have your Facebook, but obviously you have this forum now. Is there anything you want to say to the fans, to the family, while you have this forum right now of Warrior, being a man who was very influential in his early days? You gave him a platform. You gave him some people to learn from. You've obviously followed his career throughout the years. Is there anything you want to say from your heart?
Just that Jim was a special person. He will never, ever be forgotten in this business. I know personally from my conversations during the TNA that his family was very special to him, and he told me that one reason the terms of his coming in were so tough, and he knew they were, was because he didn't want to just leave home, even for a few days at the time, without a real good reason. And, so Jim was very concerned about his position in the company and the time factor and the money. And so, I don't have to say it. I'm sure his family knows how he felt about him. But Jim is the Ultimate Warrior is a special entity in the wrestling business, and it will never be forgotten.
Well, Jerry, I want to thank you for coming on. I know we had laid out a different kind of format for today with you. I hope we can get you on again. We'll do another afternoon show and talk in great length about your personal experiences in the wrestling business. Like I said, you have a story that is second to none. I do appreciate you coming on and talking about Jim. I know you've probably been bombarded since yesterday. I want to thank you for allowing us the privilege to interview you in this sad time. And I hope we can schedule you on again. I would love to talk in great length about Memphis, TNA, and like I said, you've had your hand involved into so many talents over the years. I would love to just talk more in great length about it. So hopefully we can schedule at your convenience another interview.
Okay, I enjoyed it. Thank you for calling.
Thank you, Jerry. Have a good one, sir.
Bye-bye.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was the legendary Jerry Jarrett, one of the founders of TNA, a man who promoted and booked the Memphis wrestling territory for years. He also was involved in the tail end of World Class Championship Wrestling, transitioning over to the USWA. He's also worked for Vince McMahon. He's done it all, and he had a hand in Steve Borden and Jim Hellwig's experience in Memphis early on. Michael, I apologize. You were right in the middle of telling us your Warrior memory live from 1988. So would you please pick back up where you left off?
Yeah. As I said, saw him in '88 here in Eureka, wrestling Hercules. I believe that was his first program in the WWF. But there's something about him that caught my attention and made me a fan right from the start. And back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, I don't know if you remember this, but WWE, sorry, I hate saying F, they sold satin jackets, like the baseball-style jackets on their catalogs or whatever. And they had Hogan, they had Warrior, they had, I think, Macho Man. But for my birthday one year, my parents bought me the Ultimate Warrior satin jacket. I wore the thing to school. I mean, I was in high school. I was like 15. I wore it. I mean, it's actually hanging on the chair in my office right now. I know exactly where it's at. I've had that thing since 1990 or 1989. I've had that jacket all this time, still in great condition. And so, I mean, I've been a fan since the beginning. I watched him when he did WCW. I watched him, when he came back to WWE multiple times. There's just something about him. And I got to see the Hall of Fame ceremony. I got to see him on Raw. And, I mean, it was awesome. I thought, hey, here he's back. We're going to have a chance to see him a few more times, and now this. So, my story about, when I first saw him was almost at an end. But, yeah, that was the bit. That I saw him in '88, and I still have a satin baseball jacket from '89. WWF logo on the front, Ultimate Warrior full color picture on the back. So
that is so.
He was definitely one of those legends.
Yes, and he captured people. I saw him in 1990 in Dallas at the Reunion Arena. He was the WWF champion, and for years I bugged my dad about taking me to see the WWF. We lived in Fort Worth, and we didn't have a whole lot of money. Bless my dad's heart. Finally I bugged him enough to where he would take me to Reunion Arena. So it was supposed to be Ultimate Warrior and Brutus Beefcake, Ed Leslie, against Ravishing Rick Rude and Curt Hennig. However, just days before, Beefcake was involved in the boating accident. So that night in Dallas was the debut in the World Wrestling Federation for the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich. Think about that. His WWF debut, house show-wise, not on television, was in Dallas. And he teamed up with the Ultimate Warrior against Curt Hennig and Ravishing Rick Rude. That was the first time I got to see the Ultimate Warrior. I don't believe I got to see the Warrior again after that. I think that was the only time that I saw him because he did have his troubles with Vince. Absolutely heartbreaking, folks. We're sitting on the air tonight for the first time, and we're at a loss for words. We just don't know really what to say. What can you say? I don't know what to say. I do know it's really hard for me, ladies and gentlemen, and it's hard for Michael too, because we're both fathers. And the man walked out on Saturday night with his two little girls, and they were in awe. And, for so many years, people bash the Warrior. They're singing his praises now because that's what people do when people die. Even the detractors, they get on and say, oh, he was the greatest. No, you're just saying that. There are some people out there who generally are sad, and I appreciate that, but then there's people out who are just looking to be seen or heard. He walked out with his two daughters on Saturday, and then you got to see his wife. And then maybe it clicked. Maybe this was why the Warrior was how he was. He wanted to take care of his family. He believed in his character. for years I didn't understand. I was like, why is this guy here and then gone? But he had his reasons. And, we'll probably never know the full story, sadly. He stood up to the promoter, and very few people did. Very few people do. But, we had Big Bill Anderson on a few weeks ago, and we have a written statement that Michael's going to read here in a little bit. Billy Anderson was mentioned on Saturday during the Warriors Hall of Fame speech because Billy was involved in the Warriors training with Red Bastien, the legendary Red Bastien. So, but he mentioned Bill Anderson. Bill Anderson was on a few weeks ago, and we had this discussion. When they first announced the Warrior was going into the Hall of Fame, there was a lot of people who were very happy, and there was a lot of backlash. Well, people, he deserved to be inducted, and it was a big deal. And it was so cool for people like Michael, for people like me, who we love this business, and we love the characters of this business. Any time that somebody can put aside their personal differences and come back, it means everything. You know why? Because the Warrior was there on Saturday, on Sunday, on Monday, and Tuesday he left this world. But he left this world by giving everybody an opportunity to see him one last time, whether he knew his time was approaching or not. He showed up. He didn't shoot on anybody. Everybody was worried about his speech. Is he going to bury anybody? He didn't. He had a speech that was Warrior-fied. It was the Warrior. It was him. It was his own personal spin on things. I didn't hear him bury one single person. I heard him talk about Billy Anderson, Red Bastien, Killer Kid Brooks, Rick Hazard, Bronco Lubitsch. He talked about everybody that he loved. He has, in his DVD, he talked about how much he loved Randy Savage. He talked about how much he loved Andre the Giant. And apparently, sometime over the weekend, him and Hogan buried the hatchet, which was good. It needed to happen. There's a picture on Hogan's Facebook page of Hogan, Patterson, and Warrior together right after Warrior's promo on Monday. It needed to happen. And it's unfortunate that the Warrior's life came to an end hours after this wonderful, historic weekend. Yesterday, my wife over the weekend ordered me an Ultimate Warrior shirt, and we ordered our little boy an Ultimate Warrior mask because I made a joke saying, you're not going to be like your dad. I'd run around and put on my mom's makeup, run around in my underwear thinking I was the Ultimate Warrior. We're going to get you a mask that you can put on if you want to be the Ultimate Warrior. Well, the merchandise came in yesterday, and I had no idea. You don't know these things. It's very important that whoever put the deal together, I heard it was Triple H. I've never cared for Triple H, but you know what? He put together the deal for Bruno Sammartino. Thank God. He put together the deal for the Ultimate Warrior. Thankfully. Everybody got a chance. And I was as happy as you were, Michael. I was like, he just signed a new deal. He's going to show up every now and then. There was a charity auction going on charitybiz.com or .net or something, a charity website, where people could bid money, and all the money goes for charity. And one of the prizes was you would meet the Ultimate Warrior at an NXT event in April. So the Warrior was going to be flown down to Florida, and he was going to be involved in an NXT event. Think about that. Think about the NXT superstars getting a chance to work in front of the Ultimate Warrior. And some lucky fan who bidded the right amount was going to be able to go down to NXT, see a live event, and hang out with the Ultimate Warrior. And all the money was going for charity. Sadly, we'll never get that. I'm at a loss for words, and it's really tough to do a show like this because all you want to do is pay tribute. But then you just say the same things over and over again. What am I going to talk about? Am I going to talk about how intense of a character he was? Duh. All I can do is just say what he meant to me. I thought Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior had one of the greatest matches of all time at WrestleMania 7. I think that match stands the test of time to anything put on today. I think it stands up to any TLC match. They didn't need tables, ladders, and chairs. They took a story of the Macho King with Sensational Sherry against the Ultimate Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior walked to the ring. During the match, he's talking to whoever he's talking to up above. Macho Man hits 5 elbow drops. Can't beat the Warrior. Macho Man loses. The Warrior's career is still intact. And then Sherry turns on Macho Man. Miss Elizabeth comes in, throws Sherry out, and then the Macho Man and Elizabeth embrace. No better story to be told than that. So we're just at a loss for words, and we're going to do the absolute best we can. And another thing we're not going to do is we're not going to speculate on what happened, because you know what? The Ultimate Warrior has a family. He has 2 daughters. So we're not going to speculate on what happened. Who work in the medical field, that's their job. So when they come out with the official cause of his departure, fine. Everybody else will report it. We don't have to, because that's news. That gets people's own website. That gets retweets. That's TMZ's job, not ours. We're not going to speculate. The Warrior has kids, okay? And anything you say on social media can get back to one of them. Let them grieve. Let them mourn. Don't speculate. So that's one thing we're not going to do tonight. We're just going to talk about the memories. So, Michael, is there anything you want to share since we're just kind of winging it here?
I think you've pretty much kind of said it all for, me. I'm still kind of just at a loss. Unfortunately, this isn't the first time I've been at a loss for words for things like this, but it was, like I said, it was awesome to see him. He came back. He looked good. Now, obviously, we're finding that, he wasn't as, healthy as we thought. A lot of people, like you said, they've kind of said that maybe he knew something on Monday. We're going to have a little clip of that promo, and maybe he knew something. It sounds weird, but it's a very fitting tribute now, what he had to say. So, but yeah, we can't speculate. We know some of the basic facts. We know that from all the news I've read is that he was outside of an Arizona hotel and he collapsed and they took him to the hospital. That's all we know now. And I believe, according to Mooneyham, they're going to have the Arkansas on Thursday. So we'll know something with the next few days. But, until then, you can have every conspiracy theory under the sun, about what happened. But to give you an idea just of how big, this news is, just prior, we've been talking about this for a couple of days. This weekend, there was another big event that happened at WrestleMania that we're going to discuss next week, maybe touch on a little bit this week. And everybody was talking about it, and everybody had their own theories of what happened. They couldn't believe it. I haven't read one word about that since last night. All that talk just stopped. Everybody stopped talking about that and moved on to this. That's how much of a shock this was to people, and it shows just how much that, even though he was gone for all those years, how much the Warrior still meant to people.
His Hall of Fame speech was it was quite comical at times. Because the Warrior had been on.
Long.
It was long, but you know what? And I thought it was long, but you know what? I'm glad it was. Now I'm glad.
In hindsight,
wish you would have talked longer. Wish you would have talked longer now. I wish I was still listening to it. It was 11 o'clock. My wife had her kids over here. We had the baby, and all the kids were crashed. We were very tired, but I stayed up because I wanted to hear the Warrior. Number one, I didn't know what he was going to say. And number two, this was a big deal. This was the guy that, Bruno, everybody, the Bruno deal was big, and I'm not taking anything away from that. But, you didn't think Bruno was coming back. But when he did, you're like, okay, that makes sense because they have changed the product around. They've made a lot of really good changes to how the wrestlers are treated and the storylines and stuff like that and how they take care of the guys. But the Warrior, it was more personal. It wasn't a presentation problem. It was Vince and I don't like each other. They put out a DVD defacing me. So you really didn't think that was going to happen. But so we stayed up. And, yeah, it was long. It was about 40 minutes. The Warrior seemed to get flustered at times, bamboozled with his wording. What people don't understand is the life those guys had on the road. When you were a superstar in World Wrestling Federation and you were a guy like Hogan, or you were a guy like Savage, or you were a guy like the Warrior, you were on the road every day. I'm not being facetious. I'm not exaggerating. You had days off, but they were few and far between doing house shows, doing television, doing media, doing Make-A-Wish. The television tapings back then used to be brutal because if I believe right, and Michael, you might correct me, is I believe the television tapings were anywhere from 4 to 6 hours because they would tape Superstars and Saturday Night's Main Event and Wrestling Challenge. They were long. And Coliseum Home Video. They were long tapings. So Warrior was in his top physical shape, which isn't easy. He had a hard life. Any of those guys did. Hogan did. Savage did. Warrior did. Nature Boy, Sting, Luger, all those guys had a hard life. And, man, it takes your toll. No matter what else you do while you're, living the road life, whatever. We're not going to speculate. But just going to work, doing the matches. The Warrior was intense. He wasn't a guy who went in there and mailed it in. He went in there, ran to the ring, put 157.9% into every match that he did, whether it was 30 seconds or whether it was 30 minutes. Nobody can ever say there's a Warrior went in there and mailed it in. Because he didn't. He went in there and he was 150 freaking degrees or, miles per hour. So that had to take its toll on him. So I don't know what else to say. We're gonna have a WrestleMania recap here in hour number 2, because it was historic. It was historic on many different levels, and now it's even more historic. I just received word, and me and Michael, we stay on social media during our show. We stay on so we can keep an eye on things, especially on a day like today. So I'm on social media, and the WWE Network just posted that the WWE tonight will honor the legacy and the legend of the late Ultimate Warrior beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern on the WWE Network. So I don't know what that entails, but tonight on the network at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5
p.m. where I'm at.
Yes. I'm looking here. I'm reading right now. WWE fans will be able to watch highlights from the Warriors' historic induction to the WWE Hall of Fame, plus his emotional return to Monday Night Raw. Then immediately after, the WWE Universe is invited to watch one of the Ultimate Warrior's greatest matches against Hulk Hogan when the WWE Network airs WrestleMania 6 in its entirety tonight. So they will be honoring the Ultimate Warrior, and I do know that the WWE cameras were following the Ultimate Warrior around all weekend in New Orleans filming. Don't know what's going to come of that. I hope the footage gets released. I hope. And I hope they do another DVD. And I do know, ladies and gentlemen, that the Ultimate Warrior shirts are on sale today, $17.99 on WWE Shop. I firmly believe that a lot of that money will go to the Warriors family. We don't typically endorse stuff like that, but I firmly believe it will go to his family. So if you did want to get a shirt, I would get one quickly because I do know that one shirt is already on back order. And if you haven't gotten the DVD, go get it now because it is going to be very hard to find. It's a great DVD. It's awesome. Blu-ray, DVD. It's also on digital download. Get it. Watch it. And, we got about 6 minutes until hour number 2. We will discuss WrestleMania. We will discuss the Hall of Fame, WrestleMania, and Monday Night Raw as they were very eventful. And, I don't know what else to say. Just don't.
Wow. Whatever that was great.
Yeah. of Yoda, remember?
Yeah, but we're definitely going on the fly on this one. But I'd say you're doing pretty good. I'm just kind of sitting here. But I'd say we're doing pretty good. Like I said, we're here to kind of honor, but we're also here to entertain. I mean, these people out there that are mourning the loss and they're, they need a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of something to put a smile on their face. And, if it's these two idiots hosting a show in California and Texas that winging it, hey, we did our job.
Well, one thing that was funny, I'll mention two things here. If you want entertainment, go search Ultimate Warrior Joe Green and look at those old Westway Ford commercials with Joe Green and the Ultimate Warrior. They were absolutely terrible, but if they would have been any worse, they would have been great. So, so that's very entertaining. I remember watching those as a kid. Baba, Westway Ford, Dingo Warrior was on there, and it was comical during this Hall of Fame induction when they were chanting "one more match," which shows you the respect. The Warriors said no more match, and then the WWE Universe responded with yes, 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 and the Warriors said, "Well, you just taught me something. I've been out of the business too long."
They actually mentioned
the Warrior,
that.
Yeah, the Warrior was.
They actually mentioned that in the. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say they actually show that clip in the that Daniel Bryan interview show you told me I needed to watch.
Yes.
They actually clipped that, so the Warrior doing whenever he's chanting yes, yes, yes. So.
Yes, and that was
kind of interesting.
That's another good piece of business to watch if you're a true fan of pro wrestling. Watch the Daniel Bryan Journey to WrestleMania on the WWE Network. It was a really good piece of business. Watch it. It's a real good behind-the-scenes look at Daniel Bryan's struggle. Several WWE superstars, Hall of Famers have tweeted out their sentiments about the Ultimate Warrior. Everybody from Triple H to Stephanie to Vince McMahon to Hulk Hogan to Steve Austin to The Rock to Daniel Bryan, John Cena. Imagine
Dick
what
Roberts,
they're going
Diamond
through.
Dallas.
Yes, DDP. Who's we're also going to talk about DDP because DDP deserves a lot of credit for his work for Jake the Snake, Scott Hall, and so many others. I think DDP is a savior. If you would have asked me 6-7 years ago if I would have been saying that, I would have said you're crazy. But DDP has turned into one hell of a, I don't know what the word you want to use, savior, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, well, we're going to go ahead and jump to our second hour since we are winging it here. We don't really have a set time of how long we're going to be. The show was scheduled for 2 hours originally, but because of the situation, we just don't know. We're going to do our best. We do have a statement from Bill Anderson. We're going to talk about Bill's relationship with the Ultimate Warrior. We will be sharing more sentiments about the Ultimate Warrior as best as we can. So at this time, Michael, if you want to start the second hour, I know you had something you wanted to read. So go ahead. Since I kind of kicked off the first hour, this one's yours, pal.
All right, sounds like a plan there. Before I read the statement from Bill Anderson, though, I had a chance to talk with him last night. I also had a chance to talk with Rob Schamberger for a minute. I actually invited him to come on tonight if he was so willing to join us, but he said at this point in time he couldn't do it. It'd be very emotional for him. So, but he does want to come on and join us soon to right. Talk about his experience with the Warrior because he painted the jacket the Warrior wore on Monday.
Yes, the duster. Yes, congratulations to Rob on his weekend as well. Rob's a friend of ours, and Rob was one of the highlights of WrestleMania Access. So congratulations to him, and we will be getting him on again soon. But yeah, go ahead, Michael.
And yeah, I wanted to throw in one other thing. He's having another one-day only sale on his website, and a portion of the proceeds from the sales for the next 24 hours, I believe it ends at 9 a.m. tomorrow. What time zone, I'm not sure, is going to be donated to the American Heart Association. Now,
Good.
I'm going to go and assume that might be due, in fact, to what happened yesterday, because I think we can probably safely assume it had something to do with the Warrior's heart, which is what the problem was. So I have no clarification on that, but a portion of the proceeds will be going to the American Heart Association. So if anybody's out there listening, go on there and buy some. I'm going to buy a couple. So
good.
But I wanted to share one quick. You were talking about the Warrior and how fat, he was just like 150 miles an hour. It was a go thing. I don't remember the show. I think it was a pay-per-view. It might have been a Monday Night Raw. But I remember distinctly, it was one of the funniest things I think I've seen on wrestling back then in a long time, was they introduced the Warrior, and we all remember you introduced the Warrior, you heard the music, and he ran to the ring. And he would run around the ring, hop in the ring, shake the ropes, and do all that. I mean, the guy basically blew himself up in the first minute before he even started to wrestle. And a lot of guys will tell you that. He blew himself up. I mean, he was going as fast as he possibly could. But the show was held in an arena that had a smaller, a little rampway, a very small area, to the point where a Warrior ran out, runs around the ring, runs back up the ramp behind the curtain, comes back out and does the run again because he has to go so fast and so much. He ran around the ring once, ran back, and came back and did it again. And it's always struck me that was funny when I saw it now, and it's still funny to think about it now.
What did Linda McMahon say on Saturday that he couldn't stop? He ran as much as he did because he couldn't stop. So
pretty much.
Very nice induction from Linda McMahon. I thought she did a wonderful job, and my thoughts are with her. I'm sure this was very emotional for her, considering how close she was to Warrior. I know that Linda was very hands-on with him in his later years in WWE. So I thought she did a great job, and very classy lady, as Jarrett said. I've never heard anything bad about Linda. So, but that was a very good speech. If you haven't watched the Hall of Fame and you have the WWE Network, watch it. If you haven't, that's the reason to subscribe. If for anything, ladies and gentlemen, just to see the Hall of Fame. It was awesome to see Jake and Scott Hall and the Warrior get there tonight after all their struggles. So get it, watch it. You won't regret it, I guarantee you. But anyway, I keep interrupting Michael. Go ahead, Mike.
All right. At this point in time, though, I'm going to read a statement. Like I said, I talked to Billy Anderson last night, invited him on the show, and just due to work scheduling, he wasn't able to come on. But I did offer him a chance to make a statement that we'd read on the air, and I'm going to read that statement now, if I can be given a moment. This is a statement from Bill Anderson. This is yesterday, April 8th. And it says, "My heart is hurting for the loss of a good man who loved his wife and daughters and was so proud of what he was able to achieve in professional wrestling. He always believed in himself and always encouraged others to believe in themselves. He stood up and fought against Vince McMahon where others would have surrendered. When the time was right in his heart, he put aside those differences so he could once again proudly stand before his fans and the many wrestlers he traveled the highways with. He had a couple of glorious days to bask in the love of his friends, fans, and family. Please, God, welcome this decent man to your fold." And that's a statement from Billy Anderson, who was one of the main people responsible, along with Red Bastien, for training the Ultimate Warrior and Sting. And also he trained the Angel of Death. He was part of that group. And whoever the two guys were that came over from California with him, I believe one would probably be Steve DeSalvo. He seemed to kind of travel with him. He was a Power Team USA guy or something. I think he traveled with him on occasion there. But, yeah, that's the statement from Bill Anderson. I told him we would get that out, and hopefully we'll have Bill Anderson on the show sometime here in the near future to talk more about the Warrior and all that, because you can't talk about the Warrior and his career in just an hour span of time, especially when you only had a few hours to put something together. So hopefully down the road, we can get Bill Anderson and Rob Schamberger, maybe a few other people on here, and we can kind of do a more fitting, tribute to him. So, we're doing good now, but this is kind of on the fly. maybe we can do something a little more, formal, a little more structured later on down the road. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I thought that was very nice. Of Bill. Bill's very emotional right now, as he should be. We had a brief conversation last night. I don't like to. I don't like to bother people after someone close to them has passed. I've been in that position, and even when people are just trying to be nice, sometimes you just want to be left alone, or there's other people you want to talk to. So my conversation with Bill was very brief. I told him that I loved him, and my heart was with him. And Bill responded. I put something on my Facebook page about my thoughts about the Warrior. But yeah, Bill was very big, and I mean, all you need to know about Bill Anderson's relationship with the Warrior is all you got to do is go listen to the Warriors Hall of Fame speech. He mentions Big Bill Anderson. The Warrior wouldn't have done it unless Bill made an impact on the Warrior. So all you need to know about Bill Anderson is go back and watch the Warrior speech, because he mentions him by his name. He doesn't say Red Bastien or somebody else. He says Big Bill Anderson. Bill was on here a few weeks ago, and all three of us talked in great detail about the Ultimate Warrior and Sting. We had a real good conversation with Bill. He's one of the classiest guys I've ever had the privilege of knowing. Bill's also on the Ultimate Warrior DVD. He's ring announcing the Bobby Heenan Ultimate Warrior match from the LA Sports Coliseum, so that's pretty cool. Rob Schamberger, we'll work on that, ladies and gentlemen. But like I said, today we're just kind of winging it. But anyway, we're going to recap the weekend as best as we can. This is a tribute to Warrior, but we are going to talk about WrestleMania and the Hall of Fame and Monday Night Raw for a little bit. And we are going to work on having a more fitting tribute to the Warrior in the next few weeks. This happened last night. It is taking people a little, obviously, people who knew the Warrior or even came in contact with the Warrior this past week. It's emotional because it's shocking. Nobody knew this. So anyway, this past weekend was a true historic weekend for professional wrestling. I've heard so many great things about this weekend. I wish I could have attended. I know Michael feels the same way. Michael is going to be attending WrestleMania next year in Silicon Valley. And hopefully we will be able to do a IHWE radio with Michael calling in from Access if he is able, or during WrestleMania weekend, even for a little while. We have a deal set up with the Cauliflower Alley Club. We'll be doing that in June. We'll talk about that more next week. But hopefully we will be able to do something similar at WrestleMania Access. Hoping, as Michael curses me.
I'd do it. Hope they don't throw me out, but I'd do it.
And hopefully in 2016, I will be doing the live broadcast from Dallas-Fort Worth. Hopefully, WrestleMania will be here. But anyway, I heard so many great things this weekend. There were so many shows. There were so many things going on. Saturday was the IHWE Hall. Really? No, the IHWE Hall of Fame ceremony was last month, and it was here in Fort Worth. I am bamboozled, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologize. This past Saturday was the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony. It was, and WrestleMania was at the Superdome and not the Silverdome.
Oh, God.
So, I have to get that out there. Hashtag Super, not Silver, brother. So,
Hashtag Hogan screwed up twice.
If it was anybody but Hulk Hogan, they would have thrown him out the building. But anyway, we're having a little bit of fun, ladies and gentlemen, as much as we can on this somber day. This past Saturday was a very special night. It was a Hall of Fame ceremony. It was the first time that the whole ceremony was available. It was on the WWE Network. I thought, I just would like to see them maybe structure that a little bit better. As a person who puts on a Hall of Fame, Of course, mine isn't televised, and I'm not under time constraints, and I don't, what we do in the Texas Wrestling Hall of Fame and what WWE does are two totally different things. The goal is actually the same, to honor and preserve the legends. But I would like to see a little more structure, especially if you're shooting it for television. Some people got longer speeches, and because of that, some people had to cut their speeches short. And Lita said what she needed to say. I think Lita needs to be there. Mr. T had the speech of the night by some people. Hey, Mr. T went out there and had a great speech. He wanted to put over his mother. He wanted to put over his family. I think Mr. T's problem was a lot of people's problems. When you get out there and everything hits you, you're just really not in control of keeping track of time. I think Mr. T got caught up in the moment, but his message was very clear. He loves his mother, and, hey, that's not a bad thing. We all should put as much time into putting over our mother as he did. I think we would all
maybe
be better sons if we did. Huh?
I said maybe a little less. I think it was like 12 minutes of my mama. I mean, I love Mr. T. I was looking forward to Mr. T's speech. I was like, this is going to be kind of fun. And when the fans started chanting, what? I think part of it wasn't just they were doing it because it's the Austin thing. I think part of it was because they were confused. I mean, the man started talking, how he loves his mama on President's Day. And
he rolled with it.
He just kept adding President's Day and Groundhog's Day and Easter, whatever day. And, oh, boy.
But he's right. You should love your mother on every day of the week.
I love my mother,
right.
but I'm not going to spend 13 minutes on live television talking about every holiday that I love my mother. And I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure that when, I could ask my wife, you could ask your wife, they might be able to clarify for us. But I'm pretty sure when the baby's in the womb that the mother is not peeing for two and all that. So when he started talking about her urinary tract was working for two and her digestive tract was working for two, I was just like, I don't think that's medically possible, but it was definitely different.
T. Clover Lang. We all need to remember it was Clover Lang up there. Okay, so the guy who made little sense in Rocky III was up there, not Mr. T, but anyway, he gave everybody a WrestleMania moment. I think he
definitely,
and
it also kind of set up for me what I thought was one of the funniest little jokes that I heard on Hall of Fame was, if you've seen it, he gets pulled off stage basically by Kane coming out and shaking his hand, and that was pretty much to cut it. And then when, Kane comes out and says that, he spent so much time listening to he cut off Mr. T talking about his mama because it made him want to come out and talk about his daddy, that just cracked me up. I thought that was great. So I don't know if that was planned or they winged that one or what, but I mean, it was a great setup. So
Kane did not want to go out there and give Mr. T the hug. I could tell by the look in his eyes. Kane, I've always heard is a very nice guy, and he probably did not want to do that, but he was sent out there. But Mr. T did a speech, and, it is what it is. Kane had a very nice speech for Paul Bearer. A lot of people were thinking The Undertaker was going to do the speech. I actually thought they did it right. Kane is very articulate, very intelligent. He spoke very articulately and intelligently about William Moody. Bear's sons came out and had what they wanted to say. And then, of course, The Undertaker came out with his tribute to Paul Bearer, which I thought was very classy. Kevin Nash came out to induct Scott Hall. I thought Scott could have maybe had a little more time. I think he had a story, much like Jake. I thought Jake had the best speech of the night. It's amazing what those guys came through. DDP, like I said, DDP deserves a lot of credit. But those guys also deserve a lot of credit because you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. DDP provided an avenue for them. They took it. They got on it, and they're still driving forward and not going in reverse. So I think DDP deserves a lot of credit. However, Scott and Jake both deserve a lot of credit because they have to actually do it. And it was great for them to have their moment. I didn't really have any interest in Carlos Colon. Bruiser Brody's last experience in Puerto Rico, I'm not saying Carlos had anything to do with it, but I just had no interest in Carlos Colon. So when Carlos Colon was up there, I got my kids ready for bed. And I went around, turned off lights, got something to eat, did what I needed to do because I knew the Warrior was coming up next. So, I'm not afraid to say
Carlos Colon his credit where credit's due, though. He was an integral part of, wrestling and all that, especially in Puerto Rico. And unfortunately, there was an incident that, you briefly mentioned there that's going to kind of always be a part of that. But he was a big part of the history, so, but
he was a big part of history. I just have no interest. I just have no interest in hearing him talk.
Yeah, so. I'll agree with that one. For me, the highlight of that was Carlito's, little bit about, they cut my time again. Carlito had his little bit, and then I think his brother and his cousin were just kind of told him to step off to the side. He didn't talk much after that. But I thought his time cut joke was pretty good.
They still have jobs, and they want to keep them.
They do? They're still there?
Yeah.
I haven't seen them in a while.
Yeah, well, as far as I know.
I've seen them in a while.
As far as I know. I
haven't seen them in a while.
I don't know. Maybe I'm confusing them with other people.
I
thought
they familiar though.
Maybe they left to be matadors. Who knows? But anyway.
Go be Puerto Rican bullfighters.
Yes. So that's just a rumor I heard. They went off to be matadors. They joined Tito Santana. And maybe they're fighting bulls somewhere, or they're creating bulls somewhere. But anyway, Leonard McMahon, we talked about the Warrior. Leonard McMahon came out, had a real nice speech. Warrior came out and was Warrior. The touching part of the night was when he came out with his daughters. And when he came out with his daughters and he talked about his wife. And that was very, very, very cool. So, yeah, that was the Hall of Fame. Michael, did you want to say anything about the Hall of Fame ceremony from Saturday night?
I haven't watched the Hall of Fame in its entirety. I was at work, so I had it set up through my phone and through a wireless speaker so I could listen to it. But unfortunately, I caught the replay and the live show went like an hour over. So yeah. I only saw parts of it. So I missed Lita's speech. I heard she talked for like 45 minutes. I haven't heard her yet. I did get to see Jake. Now, last year at Cauliflower Alley, they gave Jake a men's wrestling award, and DDP presented him at that. And DDP told the story about the snake in the house, and Jake, right. The snake's gone. The snake's gone. So I've heard that story. It was kind of unfortunate. That one was kind of the same. And once again, Jake Roberts gave a great speech. I mean, at Cauliflower Alley, people were wiping their eyes with their napkins at the Cauliflower Alley reunion when he gave his speech, because he talked about being a father and all that. And so, once again, it was another classic speech from Jake. It's amazing what the man's gone through. And, I liked the Paul Bearer speech. I've talked with Daniel and Moody on Facebook a couple times. I personally would have maybe put my gum backstage when I came out, but hey, they were in the moment. I thought the other son did a great impression. I thought that was awesome. That sounded
very much so.
Almost
that was
sounded
cool.
But
that was
Kane's
very
speech
cool.
was
I thought
great.
It was great.
For those who haven't seen it yet, the story about Paul Bearer wasn't feeling well and asked Kane to drive the car. The punchline of that story was great.
Right.
I thought the car story was so. It was what the Hall of Fame was supposed to be. It was entertaining. And the Warrior was good. I got home in time to catch Scott Hall, and I saw the Warrior in full. Oh, and I did see Carlos Colon, so Carlito, and looking up skirts and all that. So, it was a good it was a good Hall of Fame. I enjoyed it, and it was definitely a build up. They're kind of to the next day, which is WrestleMania, which, in my opinion, was probably one of the best, not just WrestleMania, but one of the best pay-per-views that WWE's put out in a long time. From beginning to end, the show it had your attention. It was a great show. It definitely had a killer weekend between the Hall of Fame and WrestleMania and then into Raw, which is unfortunate that, it had to end on such kind of a sad note, the next day. But I mean, as far as the WrestleMania weekend goes, it was amazing.
It really was. WrestleMania was on Sunday at the Superdome.
Yes, Superdome.
New Orleans, Louisiana. Superdome.
Austin made sure to let Hogan know where he was at.
It started out with a very iconic moment as Steve Austin, The Rock, and Hulk Hogan were in the ring at the same time for the first time since the Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania 18, when they were involved in a handicap match when Hulk Hogan teamed up with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash against Austin and The Rock. It was the main event on the Raw right before WrestleMania 18. And that was the first time they were all in the ring together since then. It was a huge moment, and it was a great way to start off the show. A lot of fans were kind of chastising the fact that it took so long. I didn't care. I loved it. Again, I was holding my son, and my son got to see three of the biggest figures in the history of the business in the ring at the same time. Daniel Bryan,
I enjoyed it. I mean, it was what it was.
It was supposed to be a moment, and that's what it was.
Right. But now, just before we start talking about Daniel Bryan and Triple H and everything, am I the only one? I was kind of hoping you might hear, like, you know, Barrett come out and say he's got some bad news, just so we could watch, you know, Austin stun him and Rock hit the rock bottom and Hogan drop a leg drop. I was kind of waiting for that.
I thought so too. I thought it was going to lead to something. It didn't, and that's fine.
This is great, but I was wondering maybe I was the only one.
Right. No, you weren't the only one. That does make sense. Really cool for them to be there. Rock and Austin obviously didn't have to be there, so it was really cool for them to fly in and do the cameo. That's what WrestleMania 30 should have been. WrestleMania 30 had the biggest names under one roof in years. Warrior, Hogan, Austin, Rock, Cena, Danielson, Taker, Lesnar, Triple H, Orton. I mean, the list just goes on and on. San Martino was there, Brett was there, Dusty was there. The list goes on and on and on of the people who were under one roof. Jake was there. I mean, just the list is
Piper
overwhelming.
was there, Orndorff.
Right, yeah, exactly. I mean, the list is just ridiculous of all the people that were there. So that was very cool. First time ever that all those guys were in the same building together, ever. And unfortunately, it's the last time because of what happened. Daniel Bryan and Triple H, I thought was fine. I thought they exceeded expectations. I thought they were going to do it back to back. I thought it was really cool for them to open up the show. When's the last time Triple H was in the opening match of WrestleMania or a pay-per-view? You know? So that was definitely different. I don't remember the order of the matches after Triple H and Daniel Bryan. You may need to help me. I think the Shield and the New Age Outlaws and Kane was next, and I think it was over.
Shield and New Age Outlaws and Kane was next. Yeah. I went into the kitchen to get some more food because, you know, I had the WrestleMania party. I went in to get some more food or whatever, and while I'm in there, I hear, you know, ding, 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 the winner of the match is the Shield. And I couldn't have been in that kitchen. I'm like, what did I miss? And my friend
you had to rewind
it.
Match. Right. That's the way it needed to be, honestly. You know, the Shield is impressive, and, you know, the Outlaws are what they were. They're a nostalgia act. So, the Shield went in there and kicked booty and took names, and that was it.
And that powerbomb was awesome.
It was. That was a WrestleMania moment. Then it came to another WrestleMania moment. I believe after that was the Andre Memorial Battle Royal.
Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, yep.
Yeah, which I'm a huge Andre the Giant fan. Everybody who knows me knows how big of a fan I am of Andre the Giant. He's the reason I started watching wrestling. I was watching this match very, very closely because I'm like, because I thought the whole point of this match was they need to give somebody the rub. They need to elevate somebody to the next level of this match. But you know how many times we get let down. So we're not in creative. We don't know what they're thinking. They did the right thing on Sunday because Cesaro, who is one of the hottest rising stars in the WWE right now, created another WrestleMania moment when he picked up the Big Show, much like Hogan did Andre in WrestleMania 3, and body slammed him over the top rope and won the Andre Battle Royal. And I thought it was awesome.
Definitely something you have to see. I mean, I kind of thought they were going to give it the Big Show, really. But yeah, watching Cesaro pick him up, and not only just pick him up, throw him on the top rope, but he carried him. I mean, yes, there was a little, but still, that's, I don't know what Big Show is, 400, 425, somewhere in there.
Right.
He picked him up, he carried him and dumped him over the top rope. I mean, that was just, and then of course another moment in the Battle Royal that, oh, definitely. But another moment in the Battle Royal that I kind of enjoyed was, and how he does these things, I don't know, but it was when they tried to eliminate Kofi, and he went over the corner, hit the stairs, lands on his back, but his feet are still on the ring steps. So he was not out of the match.
It was very innovative, and I thought he took a nasty bump to achieve what he did. But hey.
Oh, definitely.
That's what he does. I don't remember what was after that. Was it Cena and Bray Wyatt?
Yes. I'm having to think here. I mean, I had like 10 people in my house, so there was a lot of side talk.
I had people in my house too. There's only, the WrestleMania card was great. Don't get me wrong. It's not like you only remember a couple matches. It was great all the way around. I remember certain things more than others. Cena and Bray Wyatt was fine for what it was. Obviously, people are going to question the fact that Cena won. I don't think Bray Wyatt is measured on wins and losses, and I don't think this is over. Cena beat him. I thought it was a good match. I don't think Cena buried him. I think Cena went in there and made him, and elevated him to the next level. Cena doesn't make the decisions on who wins and loses. That's the office. So don't hate on Cena, everybody. He just does what he's told. Bray,
I'm with
will
you.
Be fine.
Bray Wyatt didn't need to win at WrestleMania
his character doesn't care
to make
about
a
wins
point.
and losses. Yeah, he doesn't care.
Well,
Why
it's not
should
just
he?
that. It's not just that. It's just that to be on the main stage at WrestleMania in a high-profile match, just to be in that, win or lose, you're still getting a shine off.
Elevated.
You're elevated. The way he did it was great. The whole standing on the end, telling Cena to finish him. Cena played the part great. Cena looked absolutely freaked out in that ring a few times.
Yes.
So I think Bray Wyatt
wrestled the Hulk Hogan. Bray Wyatt was in the ring on WrestleMania with the Hulk Hogan of this era. That's all you got to say.
That works. That works.
So after that, did they go right into the streak? Was that right after? Match in between?
I think it was the streak
they
match.
went right. Okay, and that match was talked about. Here's what we know. Here's what's been reported. It seems that The Undertaker suffered a concussion early on. Mm-hmm. And if you go back and watch the match, which I did last night, The Undertaker leaned heavily on Brock Lesnar to carry him through that match. The Undertaker lost. 1, 2, 3, middle of the ring. We're going to talk more about this next week. We're going to save the discussion for next week. Me and Michael both have very strong opinions on this. But we are going to save them for next week. All we're going to say is the Undertaker lost, and you know what? I want to wait a week because hopefully we will get more information. Hopefully we will read more into everything, and hopefully the Undertaker is going to be okay, especially with what happened to the Warrior. I'm hopeful that the Undertaker is home recovering, and he's going to be okay. I thought he put on a gallant effort, and I give the Undertaker nothing but respect for if he did have a concussion, which I'm hearing that he did, and by watching the match, it looks obvious that he did because I've never seen The Undertaker like that. The Undertaker had a concussion, still went in the ring with the most legitimate guy on the roster and had a match and did what he said he was going to do. So I have nothing but respect for The Undertaker. Anybody complaining about it, you're allowed your opinion. I happen to know. I happen to know things, past years, read things, had friends that worked in the company, and I know what the protocol is for Undertaker and everything he does. So, like I said, we'll discuss this more next week. But Michael, it was a shocking moment to say the least when it happened. I thought something went wrong, and I'll say two things. Number one, the faces of the fans right after that happened told the story, and more fans are talking about 21-1 than they would have been talking about 22-0.
Exactly. I mean, if everybody was expecting 22-0, and we walked out with 21-1, and now everybody's going to be waiting to see what's Brock Lesnar going to do next. So, but as you said, next week we're going to discuss this a little more in full, and also next week we'll have Mick Karch on here, and he's from Minnesota. He's stated some opinions about it also, so we'll kind of get him involved in it and get his opinions on it. So, the streak is definitely something we want to kind of focus on a little more on a different time. So, but definitely a shocking moment. I had some friends who were at WrestleMania, and they said people were leaving after that match was over. They were so shocked they just left, and I can't believe that you spend that much money to go to WrestleMania and then get up and leave.
I agree, and it's not like I think people sometimes get, and I don't want to, like Mick Foley said on this show a few weeks ago, I don't want to pull back the curtain too much. I think everybody knows, folks. This isn't like the Ultimate Fighting Championship. It's not like Lesnar went in there and just got on top of a broken man and beat him down until the referee rang the bell. There was something in play here. So I understand getting upset, but if you pay that much money to go to WrestleMania, I'm staying. So, I mean, let's all keep in mind here that who was involved in the match? The most respected guy in the locker room. You think anything goes down with that guy without him knowing it or making sure that it happens? Like I said, to be continued next week. Right after that was the Divas Battle Royal. I felt bad for the Divas because they were in a no-win situation. They went in, did what they could. AJ retained. Michael, that segment seemed to be really thrown together, and nobody cared. And it wasn't because they didn't work hard, but the match didn't seem to have any kind of psychology. They seemed to just throw it in there as a buffer to the main event. Do you agree?
Well, yeah, and they do this every year with the Divas, unfortunately. They put them in a one-on-one match, but it's a lumberjill match. Basically, WWE just has this idea of let's throw all the Divas out there at one time, everybody's going to go, woohoo, Divas, and we're going to call it good. But these women need their time.
I agree.
A friend of mine, their idea, and I thought this was actually a better idea than anything, was instead of throwing all the women in there at one time, just throw them all in there. You got 14 women, one pinfall. There wasn't even like an elimination. Right. It wasn't like a battle royal or anything. A battle royal would have made more sense. But what they could have done was maybe have
the gauntlet.
Or a gauntlet. Or they could have had where the women all were in there and there was a mini battle royal, and then whoever won that, AJ comes out and defends the title right then.
Right.
Would have been a little.
They had a 2-hour pre-show. They had a 2-hour pre-show. They could have, they could have put the women's match in the top of the second hour and then followed it up with the fatal 4-way tag. I think they could have done something a little more. But at the same time, you needed a buffer between the streak and the title match. So it's a slippery slope.
Unfortunately, the Divas are always the buffer. They did that a couple years ago when they had it was Trish and I think Morrison versus Snooki and somebody, or Snooki was on their team with them. I forget it, but the best example,
not to cut you off. No, the best example was WrestleMania 18 when The Rock wrestled Hogan, and then right after that, my friend Jazz, Texas Wrestling Hall of Famer, she had to wrestle Lita and Trish in a triple threat match for the women's title. And I remember talking to Jazz the next day, and she said, nobody cared. And not only that, nobody cared when Triple H and Jericho wrestled for the title. So that's the best example. Rock and Hogan had this epic match. Yeah, and then Jazz had to follow them. And the next day I called her and I said, hey, how was it? She goes, hey, I was watching Rock and Hogan like everybody else behind the curtain, but when I went out, nobody cared. And they had a good match. Those, three of the best divas of all time, they had a really good match, but it just didn't matter. Main event happened. I thought the main event told a really good story. Of course, it was about Daniel Bryan, overcoming the odds. They had a really dangerous table spot where actually Randy Orton landed on a monitor and cut his back open. But it ended with Daniel Bryan getting Dave Bautista to tap out. It ended with Daniel Bryan closing out WrestleMania, as so many people wanted for so long, as the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. What were your thoughts on the main event and how WrestleMania ended?
That was the ending I wanted. I said that last week, the week before. Of I wanted to see all those fans chanting yes, which they were. I wanted to see Daniel Bryan celebrate in the middle of the ring, which he did. He brought in his sister and his niece, which I thought was cool. You know, we were all trying to figure out who it was. So, but, I mean, I thought that was great. Now, the confetti, I feel sorry for the cleanup crew who has to clean all that mess up, because there were certain camera angles you couldn't even see the ring. It was just, I'd never seen that much confetti fall at one time. I mean, but it ended the way it should have. They've been doing this since SummerSlam. If they didn't have Daniel Bryan win at WrestleMania, I wouldn't have wanted to be in New Orleans. I wouldn't have wanted to be at Raw the next night. It would have been ugly. So it ended right the way it was supposed to. Daniel Bryan's got both titles, and then on Monday Night Raw, they set it up with another angle, which I can't wait to see how that one's going to work out. So they're doing the right thing with him now.
The next night on Monday was a pivotal Raw. It's become the biggest Raw of the year. It is the reset. It is what the WWE calls the first day of the next year in the WWE. It isn't January 1st. It is the day after WrestleMania. It's a Monday Night Raw. And generally, a majority of the fans who come in from all over the world will stay over for the Raw. Last year, everybody remembers Fandangoing in New Jersey. So this year it opened up with Daniel Bryan having a celebration, like setting up the WWE World Title match. I'm not really going to go in order on this. I'm just going to say what happened. Daniel Bryan wrestled Triple H. They set that up. Another interesting thing they did was AJ had a promo where, of course, he was talking about how long she's been the Divas champion. And out came an unlikely individual making her Raw debut, the star of the women's division down in NXT, somebody that I've been hearing an awful lot of, Paige, 21 years old, comes out to congratulate AJ. It somehow turns into an impromptu match for the Divas title. And before you knew it, Paige is now the NXT Women's Champion and the WWE Divas Champion, and she's the first WWE title holder that was born in the 1990s, if you can wrap your head around that one. Michael?
Yes, I'm right here. Sorry, had a little technical difficulty. I was having to fix them up. Sorry about
problem.
that. No,
so anyway,
I've seen Paige on NXT a few times. Yeah, I like Paige. I've seen her on NXT. I've watched a lot of the back stuff now with the network and all that. And I think it was a good idea, to put to put the belt on her. Now we're going to obviously set up the Paige versus AJ rematches, for the next 6 months till we get the next woman to come in. But I'm hoping now this is going to open the door for some of the other, NXT divas to come over. Because, I personally wouldn't mind seeing Charlotte come over, which is, the daughter of Ric Flair. And if anybody saw the Legends Roundtables on Friday night, Ric Flair said athletically she's more gifted than he ever was. And, that's something coming from
the dirtiest diva,
world champion.
The dirtiest diva in the game, as she's being referred to. So, anyway, we got 20 minutes. We're going to keep this going. The Ultimate Warrior came out and had a promo on Monday. It was the first time the Warrior has been seen on Monday Night Raw since 1996. He came out in a suit and tie. Then he put on a duster jacket, which was painted by our friend Rob Sandberger. And then he put on the Warrior mask that's currently being sold at all WWE live events. And he took a step back into being the Ultimate Warrior. He cut a really nice promo. We're going to play it here at the end of the show, and you can listen to it for the salt purposes, for historical purposes, just to let everybody hear it if you're listening to this show. And we've been talking about the Warrior, so it was really nice to see him on Raw, and we had no idea it would be the last time any of us ever saw him. But it was really cool that he was there.
Confused by last night, but that's the Warrior for you, or Monday night. Now turns out to be, sadly, a very fitting tribute to the man, so. I
agree. Cesaro was crowned the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal Champion by Hulk Hogan. Zeb Coulter tried to steal the thunder, And then Antonio Cesaro said, I'm not a Zeb Colter guy. I'm a Paul Heyman guy. The crowd erupted. Paul Heyman came out, and it looked to start the program finally with Cesaro and Swagger. That's probably going to end up at the next special pay-per-view. Also, Paul Heyman cut a historic promo for Brock Lesnar, something you just have to kind of go back and watch to see how brilliant it was. And it looks like Lesnar is going to be taking a sabbatical. Hopefully when he comes back, hopefully they'll have something good lined up for him. This is something we'll get into more next week when we delve into the streak. I thought the promo that Heyman cut was absolutely brilliant, Michael.
Well, on the mic, Heyman's, untouchable. I mean, there's nobody, in my opinion, right now that can match that man on the mic. He's absolutely amazing. So having him with Cesaro is going to be great for Cesaro because I think Zeb Colter was a poor match for, and I like Zeb Colter, and other personas he's had. I mean, we're not going to lie, it's Dirty Dutch Mantel.
Right.
That man right there alone on a mic is great too, but, Paul Heyman is just that. I mean, he speaks and you listen to what the man has to say. So, I mean, I think
what I like
good
most about Cesaro and Swagger is the fact that Heyman and Dutch are going to be on the mic.
That could be better than the match because I'm not a big fan of Jack Swagger.
So to Swagger and Cesaro. That's no disrespect to those guys, but man, Heyman and Dutch on the mic, wow. Wow, just unbelievable. And main event was supposed to be Daniel Bryan versus Triple H for the World Heavyweight title. Batista and Randy Orton came out and laid Daniel Bryan out. Kane followed with a chokeslam. Then the Shield came out before the match, with the bell was rang. Triple H was just going to pin Daniel Bryan. The Shield came out, had a stare down with the Authority, which now consists of Batista, Randy Orton, Kane. Well, Kane's been there. And before you knew it, Roman Reigns threw Triple H. The Authority was powdered, and Daniel Bryan ended up meeting Triple H, and the show ended with the Authority backing down, the Shield standing with Daniel Bryan, and Triple H yelling, "This is war." So it looks to be now that the Shield is aligned with Daniel Bryan, at least temporarily, and now we're going to see what comes about that. So that's where we were left on Monday night.
Well, it kind of makes you wonder, too, because we've heard the rumors before, and they might bring it back. But if it's war, WWE's pulled, done other things like WCW before. They've used some of their old stuff. I wouldn't mind kind of seeing two rings side by side, surrounded by a steel cage, and let's do an old-fashioned war game. Daniel Bryan and the Shield on one side, Triple H, Kane, Randy Orton, and Batista on the other. I mean, I say we go back a few years. Let's do an old-fashioned war games and call it good.
There's a lot of people who do feel the same way as you. I wouldn't mind seeing it myself, but we will see.
And one other thing to mention about one other thing.
Yeah.
We did see the return of Rob Van Dam. He's back for his next 4-month run or however his contract's structured. But, fans are happy to see him back. I'm a fan. I honestly would love to see Daniel Bryan and Rob Van Dam go at it for the title maybe, Let Rob Van Dam win Money in the Bank and just challenge Daniel Bryan for it. There you go. Perfect setup.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. Van Dam's still got a lot in him, and hopefully he'll give the rub to some young guys. And, so I think it'll be great. So, folks, we're coming to the end of the show. It has been a very tough show to get through. We did recap WrestleMania. We recapped the weekend because of the fact that the Ultimate Warrior was heavily involved, and we did go everything. This is a tribute to the Ultimate Warrior. We wanted to recap the whole weekend because the Warrior was prominently featured. It was the Warrior's final weekend in the wrestling business and around on this earth. We're going to be discussing the streak next week, and we will be having a better tribute to the Warrior. Possibly here in a few weeks when people have had time to mourn and grieve. We had a choice today to cancel this show or to come on and do the absolute best that we could. We chose to come on and provide whatever we could for people, a source of grief, a source of celebration, a source to just take your mind off things, whatever. and we hope that you have enjoyed it. Before we end this show with what was said on Monday, Michael, I have some things I want to say, but I'm going to say them before we go into what would be the Warriors' last promo. This time, if you want to say anything, the floor is yours.
The only thing I want to say is, and this was kind of said by Morgan Dollar yesterday the whole time, if you get a chance, even if it's just to go up and shake the hand of someone that you've idolized or someone you saw in the ring, or, you get that chance, take that opportunity, because you don't know what's going to happen. I go to the CAC reunion every year, and every year you see one person, you're like, oh, you get to meet them, and the next year they're not there. Just in the time I've been going, Dr. Death, Paul Bearer, Percy Pringle, oh, Lord, there's just a few others I'm missing right now, totally drawing a blank. But I got the chance to, go up and say hello, shake their hand, get my picture with them, stuff like that, and, now they're gone. So if you get, and that extends outside of wrestling, If you got, family you don't see all the time, or if it's family you do see all the time, take that chance to, give them a hug, pat them on the back, whatever. Tell them how much they mean to you, how much you love them. If it's a friend, family, it doesn't matter. Because you never know what's going to happen the next day. One day you're here, the next day you're gone. And it's a sad fact of life. And this is proof of it. We saw Warrior Monday night, and Tuesday he was gone. So take the chance, let people know how much you care. Take a chance to meet that idol. Take the chance to go out and smell the roses and do something you've never done before. Because tomorrow you may not be here to ever do it again. And that's pretty much all I got to say.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you for doing this with me. We did our best. We hope you enjoy the show. As far as what I've got to say, it is hard. From a guy who lost his mother when she was 38 years old. She was with me one night and she was gone the next. I got to tell you, if hug the people that are close to you and tell them that you love them. Don't hesitate. Whoever's around you, just give them a hug and say, I love you. Because you just never know. Hug your kids. Tell them you love them. Hug your kids, because you really just never know. And kids, if you're listening out there, if you're old enough to listen to this, I know teenagers go through their rebellious years when it's cool to just kayfabe your parents. But tell your parents that you love them. Give them a hug. It's not uncool, and it's the right thing to do. And what gets me is the fact that this guy had 2 little girls and has a father that really, really gets to me, especially seeing the looks on their faces on Saturday. But, we're in a business where we have heroes, and heroes are departed. We lose heroes every day, but that's life. But if you're out there and you got kids, grab them and tell them you love them. I know I was holding my little boy a little bit tighter last night, and, I'm glad we had our moment together where he could see this guy that Daddy grew up watching. Hey, he brought me a lot of good memories. It was really cool. It wasn't popular to be a fan of wrestling, but it was really cool. It really was, and I'm glad he had the opportunity to come back on. We're going to end the show tonight with what the Ultimate Warrior had to say on Monday. We're not playing this for commercial purposes. This is from WWE. It's from Monday night. It's his last words. It was his final appearance. And like I said, we're not doing this for any other reason but just historical purposes. If anybody didn't hear it, here it is. It's on WWE.com. It's on the YouTube site. And tonight on the WWE Network at 8 Eastern, they're going to be paying tribute to the Ultimate Warrior. We're going to end on this note. We'll be back next week at our regular time. And always believe. Hug your family. Tell them you love them. Thank you, Warrior. And good day.
Victory, Warrior! As I thought about what I was going to say this evening, it's been hard for me to find the words. That's...
Oh! Oh, this is going to be great. There you go. There's the Warrior.
Well then, you shut up, Warrior, and let me do the talking. No WWE talent becomes a legend on their own. Every man's heart one day beats its final beat. His lungs breathe their final breath. And if what that man did in his life makes the blood pulse through the body of others, it makes them believe deeper in something than larger than life, then his essence, his spirit will be immortalized by the storytellers, by the loyalty, by the memory of those who honor him and make the running the man did live forever. You are the legend makers of Ultimate Warrior. In the back, I see many potential legends, some of them with warrior spirits, and you will do the same for them. You will decide if they lived with a passion and intensity, so much so that you will tell your stories and you will make them legends as well. I am Ultimate Warrior. You are the Ultimate Warrior fans. And the spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever.